Hello, hello. Welcome to the End Evil podcast. My name's Chris Jansen, and evil is the destruction of freedom. I'm coming to you today with a very special show. I have two important guests with me, and it's really good timing because both of these guests have some experience and knowledge in something that I've been thinking very deeply about in my path and travels doing the End Evil podcast. I always struggle with how to reach out to people, and what I often find is that the people I'm reaching are the people that already have looked into natural law, people have already studied the work of Mark Passio, people that have already looked into occult traditions. And what's difficult is to reach out to people that really are totally new to this subject matter. And so, one area that I've been trying to branch out into is my own personal self work. And I'm working on exercise, breathing techniques, um, and self-defense techniques as well. And I think by improving myself in the physical material realm, that might set a good example for others to see, like, what is the philosophy behind this that allows this person to have this confidence and strength in the world. And that's taking me putting one foot in front of the other and proving it that I can do these things. And so I'm really challenging myself, and I'm also forming a group, and I'm looking for people that are on this same path that I'm on, dedicated to do this work. And if you're one of these people, go to chrisjansen.com. I'll put the link on the screen in a little bit here, and enter your name into the prompt, and you're going to get an email from me within the next couple weeks, and it's going to give you some opportunities of how to connect with me and my group that's going to be called the One Great Work Warriors. And we're trying to really push right now because the evil in the world has gotten out of hand. Right now, children are being enslaved. People are going through major health issues. People are dying at an amazing rate because the globalists and the occult leadership in the world have totally um, taken over this whole planet. And if we don't do something about it, things are going to get far worse. So I'm going to bring in my guests today. I have with me today Crypt Rick and Nathan Crabtree, both people I've met through the network. Um, Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good to
Th-
see you.
Good to see you too, Chris.
Thanks for having
Um,
us, Chris.
yeah, this is awesome. Why don't start off, Nathan, and then after you, Rick, we can just give me a little intro um, about yourself, the audience, if people don't know you or how you came here. Why don't
Uh,
you
s-
start, Nathan?
yeah, so I've been listening to Mark Passio and other truthers like Larkin Rose. I've been listening to their work for about 8 years at least, and I really resonated with the message of truth. I went and visited Mark at the Free Your Mind conferences multiple times, and started my podcast 5 or 6 years ago. I am a healer now. I'm starting by healing myself fully and trying to manifest alternative communities in the world and also bring freedom to even the cities from the inside out, doing podcast work and just setting a good example and stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. And I can say from my experience, I've seen Nathan to be someone that really puts, like I'm saying, one foot in front of the other and does the action in the real world. And he puts a lot of effort and fire energy into being the person he is. And I appreciate that energy. And I'm glad to have you today. And another person who's been taking a lot of action has been Crypt Rick. He's been putting out a radio show, video shows, showing up to discussions, just like constantly working now on the One Great Work Network, and has joined in actually working with us at the Natural Freedom Alliance. And so he's going to be part of the planning organization committee for if things go forward as we plan with Funnel 3.
That'll
So
be awesome.
welcome, Rick.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I always love having chats with you, for sure. And we have a lot of great chats about a lot of important subjects. So I'm looking forward to this. And I also, much like Nathan, Mark Passio was the one that really kind of put the pieces together for me. I started listening to his podcast years ago. And then listening to watching all his presentations. I've watched most of them several times because I think there's so much knowledge in them that you have to watch them a couple of times just to kind of absorb it all. And so it was listening to Mark that gave me the kick in the ass that I needed to start doing something myself. And that's what I needed. I needed that tough love to get me started. And because I had a million excuses back then not to do it. So I kind of needed that tough love to get started. So definitely started doing interviews on YouTube and expanding to the other platforms is what I'm doing right now. And as you said, I do a radio show twice a week now. I do them Saturday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also Monday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Revolution Radio. And I bring on lots of amazing guests. We talk about a lot of the topics that we all like discussing. We discuss freedom, truth, objective morality, conscious parenting, natural law. We get into the occult, all of these topics.
Yeah, it's wonderful material, and I like the fact that you're doing that radio show too, and we just got to keep finding ways to get this material out to more eyes and more minds. I should have said this up front, but if you guys get a minute, maybe when someone else is talking, put your links in our private chat, and then I'll put them on the scroll bar so people can see in the show. Okay. But I was going to go to Nathan next. The first subject I thought would be good to start with is to talk about self-healing. I think we're in a time right now when people are damaged emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So many people I've met, if I use the word spiritual, they don't even really vibe with that word. Like, it doesn't even make sense to them. What is that? What is spirituality? And then as far as the physical level, we got obviously, since the pandemic and the scamdemic, we've got people sick and injured from these dangerous things that people are sticking into their bodies, and I can't imagine what all that covering up your face and mouth has done to people, and then emotional strain of being split up from families, and there's just so much damage to people right now. So it's really a time for self-healing, and I see that as a way we can reach out to people to help them with their healing process, and that will help build that trust so they might actually listen to what we're saying with these more difficult concepts of natural law and government and slavery. So that's a long explanation. Nathan, would you talk a little bit about your self-healing process?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I went ahead and sent you that link in the private chat. So
got it. Thank you.
So last year I had a disaster happen to me that resulted in me being hospitalized. It was basically a PTSD downward spiral that emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically destroyed me. And it started with an event that was partially my fault, but was also a co-creation that resulted in me receiving physical trauma as well as mental and physical attack from people around me, as well as groups of order followers. So basically, I was put into a psychiatric unit at a hospital, and they then put me on experimental pharmaceutical drugs against my will. They caused a nosebleed with a COVID nasal test and stuff, and that was done entirely involuntarily. I actually tried to run out of the hospital and escape, and I had 6 men tackle me and shove this sharp metal object in my nose, causing a nosebleed. It was really terrible. I was not able to mentally recover from that level of trauma and terror that I was put on for about 3 weeks. And over the course of the summer, I just slowly died physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I manifested some kind of heart condition. I don't know exactly what it was, but I was having kidney problems. I was binge eating and I was unable to sleep for 5 months. And eventually I had a grand mal seizure, which happened last August. And I actually lost 4 days of time, and I woke up in a hospital ICU with a bunch of machines plugged up to me, and terrible pain in my heart and chest, and also my back. And it was a very painful experience. It went on for about 10 days in the ICU. I had people taking my blood against my will and all kinds of painful, terrible things. And I was convinced I was going to die and basically go to hell because of bad karma that was partially, I was partially responsible for some bad karma that I had participated in creating. And, I was convinced I was about to die any day and then wake up on a terrible timeline and never be able to find the truth again. And just reincarnate 10 or more times, getting progressively worse and closer to actual like Christian hell, where I would then be lost forever. So that's what happened to me last year. After getting out of the ICU, I was taken to a recovery center in Utah, which really wasn't very good. They were also kind of order followers and doing things according to insurance agencies' orders, and common pharmaceutical knowledge, and just the system stuff. Nothing really that creative or out of the box. So it didn't help me that much. Really, it started the process of my physical recovery, which I was surprised to see some of my physical strength coming back. I had the ability to exercise again. Slowly but surely, I started running again while I was there. All during last summer, I was not able to exercise because I wasn't sleeping for about 5 months straight, and my energy levels got lower and lower until they actually bottomed out, and I had that seizure. So it was a PTSD response, and ever since getting back into that recovery center, where I was kind of at least in a somewhat safe environment where other people were, around, I guess. I've really been hard focused on healing, physically, mentally, spiritually, and really on all levels, but especially physical healing, because I did have some physical traumas and extreme amounts of pain in multiple locations, including my heart and upper back. And I've made a tremendous improvement in just 1 year. And I can explain, things I've been doing that really have facilitated that, as well as some setbacks that happened last winter, that kind of screwed that up a little bit. But I'm doing really well. I've had a good summer, and I've got a lot of knowledge about it now. And, so I feel like I can really be of service, telling people the way they should think and what they should do to try to improve bad things that might have happened to them.
It's so real. And I remember, Nathan, you and I had one conversation when you were kind of at a low point, and it's really making me happy to see you back getting out there and feeling better and strong. And I think that's something that could inspire people. We are getting some extra sound, guys, so I think maybe we should mute when the other people are talking. At first I said don't worry about it, but it is kind of coming through. And then I'll go to Rick next, but let me ask you, Nathan, one quick question here. Maybe you could just kind of talk about a couple of the biggest things that have helped that healing process.
So the number one thing that anybody should do is actually not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. You have to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually be fully aligned on healing. It has to be kind of like an obsession. And you might have other responsibilities in life that may be a little bit distracting, but when you do have free time, and whenever you do think about what has been done to you or any injuries that you have, if rather than just dwelling in that pain and getting sad and depressed about it, what I do and what I started doing is anytime I feel those physical sensations or the mental sadness, I put a trigger in my mind that becomes a habit, and it's a habitual way of thinking where whenever I feel those pains, I have a thought that I put into my head and into reality of the opposite of what I'm experiencing. So instead of pain, I will focus and think about pleasure or healing, for example. Instead of injury, I will think the phrase in my mind, healing, healing. And sometimes I'll even obsessively have that thought for hours and hours, almost like a mantra. And you could even speak the phrase out loud if you wanted, but I just typically think about it in my mind. So what that does is basically directs your subconscious in the direction of recovery and healing. And other forces might come into your reality to assist you in that direction. And you might use certain tools like certain medicines. There might be medicine people that enter your life that have things that you can try out. There might be certain therapies. There might be a therapist that you need to go get advice from or something. But everyone's healing path is going to look a little bit different. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if you're mentally choosing healing and directing your life in that direction, that's the number one thing that you can do.
Yeah, that's absolutely been my experience as well. When we put the will and the intention in that direction, and then the other thing that popped into my head, Nathan, and thanks for sharing your personal experience so honestly and bravely. The other thing I've experienced is I'm a person who's gone through a lot of anxiety and self doubt, and when negative thoughts come into my head or storylines, oh, I'm not doing good enough, someone doesn't like me, what I've learned to do is counter those thoughts immediately, and with a positive thought, be like, I'm really good, I do a lot of good things, I try to help people, I have a lot of friends, and as soon as my brain, maybe it's not even coming from my brain, maybe it's coming from all these vibes of negativity that are in the outside world. Who knows where these thoughts come from? We don't know that. But I know they come. And I know a lot of the people are dealing with them, especially if you're alone and you spend a bunch of time in your house shut up because the authorities didn't want to let you out and you followed their rules. You probably got depressed and you're probably thinking negative thoughts because, and so I do recommend seeing a therapist in many cases. And I've done past episodes with Leslie Powers, and Nathan recently did an episode with Leslie Powers. So did Rick, and she's someone that may be someone to listen to and check out AliveThrive.life, and she may even be someone in for people in the freedom community at some point that can be someone that they can talk to. I think that's the direction she's going with her work. But there's other people out there that are like that if you look and you diligently seek help, there things will come to your aid, like Nathan says. Even non-visible forces will come to your aid when you show courage and you reach out for help. I think that biblical saying is true. Knock and the door will be opened. Ask and you shall receive. That is true. That is a natural dynamic of manifestation in this universe. But you have to put the good foot forward and take that action and seek it out. And I love the way you explain that, Nathan. That positive intention and not letting yourself get stuck in that muck of self doubt and depression. Saying, nope, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to heal. And on that subject, Rick, we couldn't have a more perfect person to talk about healing because you've gone through probably more than any of us have pain, physical frustrations, and restrictions and setbacks.
For
So
sure.
tell us a little bit about your experience on that.
Well, yeah, definitely. It's been a journey, that's for sure. And just so people kind of know where I'm at is when I was 16 years old, I started. I was in a lot of pain. I was getting a lot of pain that doctors really couldn't figure out what was going on. I was getting a lot of lower back pain, a lot of hip pain. So that began my journey into the medical world, and they did a good number on me over the years because not knowing any better at such a young age, and you're kind of taught that doctor knows best, and you listen to what they say. So, I mean, I could go on a whole show just about that, but yeah, definitely. I got that at a very young age. My condition, ankylosing spondylitis. That's the condition that I have. Don't like to call it a disease. I think that word is too powerful. I kind of like to call it I like to kind of call it a inconvenience. It's something that I have to live with and work around. And so disease I don't like to use, but I just think that's words have power. And I think a lot of people, that word, has a lot of power behind it. So it's been a journey, and which led me down a lot of paths, and I've dealt with a lot of things over the years. Depression is a big one, when you're kind of in that state of when you're in a chronic pain state, and at such a young age, you're not really spiritually mature at that age. At least I wasn't, and so it's a been a journey of discovery for me of who I am. And that's kind of over the years something I was kind of doing that over the years, not really realizing it. It wasn't called shadow work. I didn't know that term back then. I kind of looked at it as confronting my demons, or something like that. I didn't know the term shadow work, but even back then, at times I was doing that. I was really trying to turn in and look in on myself, because I wanted to I didn't know, I didn't really understand why I was feeling the way that I did, or reacting the way I did. So and it was a journey of going up and down, Chris. It was like never a perfect thing. Sometimes I would be doing the work on myself for a while, doing a little bit of progress, and then I would slip. And that kind of happened for many years when I got heavy into drinking. I just kind of fell off the path, and I just kind of didn't know how to deal with my condition. I didn't know how to really work on myself. So I just kind of pushed that trauma down. And that's why I turned to drinking. I didn't want to think about it, and I just pushed it down. Did that for a lot of years, and then realized that wasn't the way to go, and I got stopped drinking, and then started really working on myself. And that's when things started to change, is when I really took working on myself serious, and I became brutally honest with myself. I think that's key, that you have to be super honest, uh, and really start looking in and yourself. I think that's the foundation. And I say that all the time to people, that I think that's a step that people are missing. They take in on this information. They're eager to take in and learn this stuff, but they've kind of missed a key point that I think is you have to get right with yourself, and you have to kind of work on yourself before you can really start putting the work out properly. I think you really have to know yourself, and kind of work through the dark parts of yourself and the things you don't like about yourself. And I was always somebody that was really, I always found it fascinating why people react the way they do to certain things, why they are why they think the way they do. So I've always been fascinated by that. And I just turned that in on myself, really working on myself. And it's like Nathan said, you have to go into it with a positive mindset. It's really key, having the correct mindset when you start doing the shadow work, and you have to have the correct intentions behind it. And once I did that, it really made a difference in my life when I started doing that work. And I'm kind of like everyone else. I'm very self-doubting, and I've talked about it on my show. I would always say I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. So many things that I kind of picked up over the years, whether somebody said it to me or I picked it up somewhere, I don't know, but it kind of always is playing in my head. And I had to really confront that and change how I say things to myself. I think the things that people say themselves are really brutal at times, and you have to be aware of what you're saying to yourself. That's part of it. So when I became aware of the negativity that I was saying even to myself, and changing that into a positive, and saying, you got to be aware of it first, and then change it, and start doing it in a positive, changing the negativity into a positive, what you're saying to yourself. That was key to me moving forward.
And that process is what we call the initiation, when we stop
Right.
lying to ourselves. And we all do it.
Yep.
It's part of our society. Our whole society is built on lies, and our whole
For sure.
cult. It's a cult of lying, is what it is, the way it is, because even the basic idea of freedom, we can't really understand freedom in a society that's always been in slavery as long as we've existed. So right now we're talking about freedom almost in a theoretical way,
Mhm.
because none of us have truly experienced it, because we're living under this umbrella of enslavement, and
sure.
it's not something that we can easily just pop right out of. It's going to take the effort of the whole community of people to really end that situation. And that's why my podcast is called End Evil, and that's why I use the tree of life, because it represents the interconnectedness, that it's not just an individual process. We need to be all working on this as a
Right.
group. And that's kind of what I was really talking about in the funnel conference, funnel 2. If people want, you should check out freedomundernaturallaw.com and look at the recent Funnel 2 conference where Rick did a presentation, his first ever full presentation. And like he was saying, it was very true. He was nervous when we approached him and said, "Hey,
Yep.
do you want to do a presentation?" He's like, "Oh, I've never done one before. I don't know if I could do this. I'm not sure. I don't want to ruin the conference." He was so like kind of almost down on himself. And
Yep.
luckily, the other members of the Natural Freedom Alliance were like encouraging Rick and saying, "We know you can do it." And obviously he did. You can check it out yourself. It's pretty awesome especially for a first presentation. But even if it wasn't your first presentation, I would still say you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And people should check it out and be inspired by what you've done and what you've worked through. Proves, look at a lot of other people that don't have the type of physical ailments that you've had to deal with, and they're complaining about problems. And it's like, look at, if Rick can work through this, if Nathan can get through what he just got through, almost dying, you can do it too, folks. And we
Yep.
can. It's just there's people you can talk to too. I mean, you
That
can
was
reach
key.
out.
Yeah, that
Reach
was
out to
key.
these people. We want to help. We're here. That's why we're advertising on these social media channels, and that's why we're doing these podcasts and shows, is because we care about the population, about principles, and the principle of care is the underlying most important principle there is. And that's kind of what we're really on today, is this whole concept of self-care. So one other thing that pops into my head is nature, God. The idea of nature. For me, nature has been one of the most healing aspects of reality. When I'm not feeling well, I work with my body. I get outdoors. And this morning I was grounding myself, putting my bare feet in the grass, putting my body in the cold water, and exercising my body. And I find that that brings me to a higher vibration. And at a higher vibration, realizations come to you, and you're never going to get those downloads from the source if you don't expose yourself to the source. And
Right.
way people are used to living in this society is sitting in front of the television or sitting in front of a computer, which is okay. It is what it is. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad in and of itself, but if it prevents people from getting outdoors and connecting to the source, or connecting with their own body, their own physical body, there's certain things you're never going to experience if you don't stretch your muscles and get out and like exercising to the point where you're sweaty and the toxins come out of you. Most of us have had some kind of vaccines in our body when we were kids, and our body is a self-healing machine. That's what nature does. It just heals. It just grows. That's all it wants to do, is expand and grow. Anyway, I'm going on and on. I want to hear more from you guys. I'm going to pass it back to Nathan. I'd like to hear what you have to say about nature and God connection.
Thanks. Yeah. So one of the most important things to have a connection to in nature is the sun. One thing that I've done this year that I discovered last year or the year before, there's an herb you can take. It's called astaxanthin. It's spelled ASTAZX, ASTAXATHANTHIN, astaxanthin. You might have to spell that out on Google. But I take this brand. It's called Prescribed for Life. I take the 5% astaxanthin powder that they offer. And in the middle of summer, I'll take maybe a heaping tablespoon of that. And what it does is it allows your body to absorb up to 5 times as much sunlight without burning. So it's kind of like an edible sunscreen. It's actually a Red Sea algae, and it's a very potent antioxidant. So this is a hidden form of supplementation in herb. It's basically a cult. I had a friend who knew about it somehow, but very few people are doing this. And what you'll find if you start doing it regularly in the middle of summer, especially if you don't have a job that's keeping you indoors all day, that's a big problem for a lot of people, is we've got this system of slavery that is controlling all of your waking hours. And that's going to, in some ways, prevent, certain other things, you from doing other things that you could do for your health or your safety, or just things that you want to do for fun, because having fun is another good thing to do to heal yourself. Like laughter, has been said to be the best medicine and stuff. But try that out. Try out the astaxanthin, especially if you happen to have time in the middle of summer when it's really, really hot. You'll see it provides the most pure, like divine, like good feeling energy that could just really, I feel like it has a healing power on its own, the sun itself. And if you were to combine that with an array of other natural healing practices, like you're saying, exercise is going to be one of your most important healing practices that you can do. And depending on where you're at, you might have to start really small, and it might be difficult at first. Over time, if you have the attitude that everything that you do is easy and you're only going to do things the easy way, that's what I do. It's something that I do. I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but that's also one of my mantras and kind of magic phrases that I put in my subconscious. I really am permanently on easy mode, and I only do easy things. So for me, I only exercise when I feel like exercising. And it just so happens to turn out that I genuinely feel like exercising frequently. So what I do is, it's about October now. The sun is at a different angle. I can't really get a lot of direct sunlight the same way I would in the middle of summer. So whenever the sun is peaking, I just go on a 1 to 2 hour run. And I take my shirt off, which allows me to absorb more sunlight and stuff. But like you're saying, the exercise definitely raises your vibration. And basically what that means is you start thinking more clearly and potentially faster as well. But also your general spirits lift and your emotions just genuinely become better. And you release a lot of hormones and chemicals and dopamine, for example, in your body as a result of the effort that you're putting in, that just genuinely feel good. So it can take you out of a bad mood and put you into a good mood, or it can take a good mood and turn it into a really, really, really great mood. So just from exercising out in the sun, or even in the winter, you could do some cold therapy by running around with no shirt on, is kind of what I do. So other than that, there's a lot of natural healing herbs and medicines, cannabis. There's some magic mushrooms, peyote, a lot of different medicines that you can try. Having a natural diet is going to be, again, one of your most important healing practices. So the big three, I would say, is like sleep, sunlight, exercise, and then having a diet that doesn't have dead animals or the product of animal slavery, like cheese, milk, meat, processed foods. I'm finding that avoiding cooked foods can result in faster healing as well. And there's detox methods that you can use, like fasting is another really great way to go. So I just take it one day at a time. I eat what I feel like eating. I do it the easy way, but I also am going in the path of healing. And when you have both of those intentions simultaneously, you will find that over time, it becomes easier and easier to choose the right foods, to let go of addictions, to certain foods or even alcohol or other things that are holding you back. You just got to make small steps over time and not come down on yourself. If you one day feel like eating some wheat crackers or some other kind of junk food, as long as over time you're making better and better choices and you feel better over time, then you can really just kind of I coast your way to happiness, health, and freedom and stuff. So that's what I do.
That's some super powerful. I love all the things you shared, Nathan. and the intentionality and the way you're describing of how you think about it is important. And I think that some people kind of scoff a little bit. They call it woo woo, but all religions have had this idea of prayer, and I hesitate to use that word sometimes because it associates with the dogmatic aspect of religions. But thinking positive and using the correct terminology makes a big difference. At my work, we stopped using good morning because the word morning refers to sadness. Mourning. You wake. When do you go to a wake? That's a funeral. No, so we say grand rising, you know? And there are many awesome detox methods out there and teachers, especially since the scamdemic. I've been doing a lot of work with Andrew Kaufman, and he has a site. He's got a course called Alchemical Detox, and you can look that up. Look andrewkaufman.com, andrewkaufmanmd.com, or truemedicineuniversity.com. There's Amanda Vollmer. There's so many other amazing Tom Cowan that are giving natural methods. I'm blanking out on another guy's name who has for years been doing detox. Maybe it'll come to me. He's got the long hair. Avocado Wolf, right? There's so many. And if you seek natural solutions, there are plenty. There's solvents we can use in our body. And then there's herbs. I've got really interested in, and there's all kinds of herbs. I make my own teas, using herbs or tinctures. They're really easy to make tinctures. Anyone can do it. It's not that difficult. And there's plenty of plants out there that actually want to help us. And now, don't get me wrong, you want to use advice. You can overdo these plants and use the wrong dosages. You don't want to just start taking whatever. You want to get good advice. Patty Lager, another one I'd recommend to check out. But
She's
I
working
really,
with me.
oh, is
Yep.
she? Awesome. Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, so why
Yep.
don't you go next? Rick, jump in.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just, when you
No,
said her name,
perfect timing.
yeah, like Patty's been working with me now for about 2 months now, and getting my working on my diet, because I think everything that we're talking about kind of all works together. So I think people neglect certain parts, and for me, I was doing my shadow work for sure. And I love what you say about nature, Chris. I totally agree with both what you and Nathan are saying. I love being out in my garden. That's where I do my shadow work. I love sitting out there in the sun, quiet with myself, doing the shadow work. After I'm done that, I work in my garden. I'm learning how to grow things, and so it's all a new learning curve, but I'm enjoying it a lot. And getting the benefit of healthy food, and for the labor that I'm putting in and the work of love that I'm putting into my gardens, I get a great reward from it. But that was kind of an aspect of my growth that I kind of neglected. I was kind of so busy working on myself. I just kind of, not that I was a bad eater, but I definitely wasn't. There's much room for improvement. So as I was working and doing the work on myself and my shadow work, I realized that I have to start, and I had to start, I realized that my diet had to definitely change. And so I started working with Patricia Lager, and she kind of has got me on doing a detox. I'm doing like water detox, starting with that slowly. I'm not going crazy, but we're slowly changing things about my diet, which is making a huge difference. It's really incredible when you start eating good food, how clear, like how much more clear your thinking is and your mind is. And so it's been I think that's a key point too. It kind of all has to work together. You kind of got to be working on yourself, and very mindful of what you're saying to yourself, and then work on what you're taking into your body. So definitely, like you were saying, a good diet, herbs. I'm working with herbs now, tinctures, like you said, I love those. And teas are a great one that I like using. A big fan of CBD. That is a game changer for me. It's something that I've been using for a few years now, and really it was a game changer. That basically got me off most of my medications. Really amazing. And so it's really important, I think, that we kind of people work on all aspects and not neglect certain parts, which is what I did definitely with my diet. Was a big one. I just kind of not really consciously thought about it really in depth, and then realizing that it's so important, what you're putting into your body. And so I'm really conscious now about what I'm eating, and Definitely trying to get out in the sun, as Nathan was saying, and you were saying a lot more. I love being out in the sun. It's just game changing. And a big one too, I think that a lot of people are suffering from is lack of sleep. That's a huge one. I know so many people that maybe get 3 or 4 hours sleep a day because of their job and their busy lifestyle, and they just not doing good. They just are in rough. They're really in a rough shape most of the time. So I think sleep is another one that people have to start really giving themselves time to do, is to get that rest that you need, because it's really important.
And a lot of that getting to sleep is cutting off the screen time and the
Oh, for
lights.
sure.
Our bodies don't do well with unnatural light. The light frequencies that are coming from fluorescent lights and LEDs are even worse. The blue light affects our serotonin and melatonin release levels, and you need to be turning this stuff off if you're having trouble sleeping a good couple hours before bed. And I know there's research, a lot of research on this, because a good friend of mine sells the glasses that help block the blue lights. um, spectra479.com, I believe. I hope I said that correct. But blue blocking glasses, something worth looking into if you can't get away from the screens. But there are other methods as well. And I think what we're talking about, the sun, extremely important. And Rick,
Yes,
you're saying the synergistic work of mental, physical, and spiritual are all tied
exactly.
together. And when you're approaching all three of those, you're going to feel the difference. And the other thing that really popped into my head is so often these things that harm us are about things that to fix the problem are things we don't do. And it's same in life about evil things, right? All the bad things we can think of, we can be avoided by just don't do them, right? You don't lie, right? Don't
Yep.
steal people's stuff. Don't cheat, right? Don't sleep with somebody else's mate. It's like really simple things. Don't rape people. Those are just things you don't do, right? And the same thing is true with what you put in your body. It's more about what you don't put into your body. Don't let
Exactly.
people inject needles into your body. Don't you know don't eat things that are processed. And like Nathan says, even cooked foods. I found myself the same thing. For a while I lived at this place where I didn't have a good cold food storage, and I was just working out of coolers, and figured out I could eat fresh fruit salad and only fresh things. And I was like, you know what, I'm eating just fine. I don't really need to cook much of anything, you know
Yep.
and it just need to keep a couple things cool so they don't go bad. And that had made a big difference. And then for me, when I quit meat, it's been quite a few years now since I quit eating meat. I found this strange thing after the first few months of my digestion adjusting, which there was about 3 months of kind of uncomfortable feelings. I think my body was detoxing out all that crap from the meat that I'd eaten all those years. Then I have this weird thing where I'm more lightweight, and I don't get tired during the day. And I used to happen to me all the time. I would
Hmm.
get, like, in the middle of the day, 3 o'clock, I would start kind of nodding off. As soon as I completely quit eating meat, I never have that feeling again. And I don't know that it's necessarily, I can't prove it's necessarily related, but I've noticed the difference, and that's all I'm saying.
Me too. Me too. As soon as I started eating, like you were saying, like fruits and vegetables, nuts, and getting rid of any processed food, and especially my water quality, getting a good water filter, because I was like that was a big one for me too. And I'm the same way as you were, Chris. My energy levels went right up. It was really, really surprising after a while. It took a little time, but it's very noticeable when you start doing it. And
Absolutely.
you don't need a lot of food either. I think like definitely people eat way more than they need. Like for me, I don't need to eat these big meals. I just kind of eat on the go, and I have my breakfast, and but very small, and then same with lunch, and same with those, but it's not big meals. And I think a lot of people
Here's my meal
eat
this
way
morning.
more. Well,
I got
yes. There you go.
grapes,
Yeah,
strawberries, and blueberries, and that's what I eat.
that's amazing.
Usually
Yep.
between 9 and 1 o'clock. That's all eat fruit, and it's plenty. It's good too. It's fun to eat.
Yep.
And the other thing I wanted to comment on was something that Nathan said about taking it easy. You know, you can work really hard, but you can also take it easy. the way I began my exercise regimen, I always have talked about this, and I'm talking about this with the One Great Work Warriors email. Incrementally, I started off with 7 push-ups every day, and I just stuck to that because 7 push-ups was easy for me. Now, for someone else who doesn't have a super lightweight body like me, you might only be able to do 1 pull-up, or push-up might not even be the thing for you. Maybe it's just walking around the block. But if you get used to the routine of doing something every day, it does get easy. And then all of a sudden, if you were doing 7 push-ups for 3 weeks, on the 4th week you feel like, oh, I could do 15, no problem. It's not even hard. And then the next week, oh, I can do 30. It's amazing what happens, like when you start going to the gym, for instance. Like if you go consistently to a gym for 2 months, all of a sudden you'll just be blown away. You'll look at those bands, you're like, I remember when I could only do that one little one. Now I can put 4 of them on there. It seems inconceivable. So I'll pass it to you, Nathan. Curious what thoughts are popping through your head as we're having this discussion.
Yeah, one quick thing I wanted to throw out as well. It'll save you money on groceries, and it'll also give some control back to you over your own food. One thing I really like to do is microgreens and sprouts, and it's a very cheap way to eat. And lately, my favorite way to eat them is with these seaweed wraps that I buy at the health food store. They're just kind of like greenish brown black things of seaweed that you can like roll up into a burrito, maybe with some date sauce or something else. And then so I've been eating that in the last 2 days. I just moved into my house here, and I got all my microgreens set up again. I actually lost my old house in that disaster that happened last year. But other than that, I'd say you guys have some really great advice so far. The only other weird thing that I'm kind of trying that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, one name for it is called Shazambu, but it's actually also called urine therapy. So, because I'm trying to be as on the path of healing as I can be, I've trying out different things, and I'm taking it really seriously. So one of the things that I've been trying out is drinking your own urine. And what I've heard about that is it's best to do that if you're already kind of like on a detox diet and stuff. But in my experimentation, what at the very least I can say is that it definitely doesn't hurt you. So it's not really going to poison you, and it's not going to mess anything up that in any way that I can perceive. So as far as like super obvious magical healing powers, I would say it's probably going to be very subtle, and it might have effects over time. So
Yeah, I have heard of that, Nathan. It comes up because I've been, involved recently in the natural healing community, and yeah, I think it's not something like you don't want to drink all your beer. I think you taste it, basically, the way I understand it, and I think what it does is kind of offer your body this feedback, kind of what's coming in, what's coming out. I haven't tried it myself, but I would look in.
I've never even heard of
I think
it.
I mentioned Amanda Vollmer. I
Wow.
think she is one of the people that talk about that. I might be confused, but I believe so. But yeah, there's a lot of methods out there and different things that that sound wild and out there, but we've been taught everything wrong, incorrectly. I would say the number one thing for your health is stay the hell away from hospitals and stay the hell away from pharmaceuticals. There's nothing out there killing more people other than possibly freeways and cars than hospitals, malpractice, and pharmaceuticals. And the worst medical, I try to point this out through the pandemic, the worst medical malpractice suit in history was Pfizer. The most money ever transacted was because of their evil deeds of fraud and tricking people and actually literally killing people with poison. And they get away with it. They're getting away with it, and that is evident that the world is controlled completely by evildoers. Otherwise, how would they get away with that stuff and keep getting away with it, keep getting away with it? So,
Yep.
go
the
ahead, jump in.
hospital is what killed me last year, actually, was the psychiatric unit and the drugging, and then the blatant disregard of my natural human rights, locking me in a cage for a week. It killed me, actually. So
Yeah, I mean, I worried so much when they were telling people to stay inside their homes and they were making people wear masks and distance. Like, I was more worried about the emotional trauma that was going to do it to children and young people. We already had an epidemic of teenage suicide. How are people going to feel, especially when you tell them that, oh, your job isn't essential? And now you're
Hmm.
in your house by yourself and your grandma doesn't want you to come over. The one person who will give you a hug unconditionally, and you can't go to her house because you're afraid you're going to kill her with your own breath. And then as it comes out, we look deeper, and this whole thing about viruses is absolute bullshit. There's no such thing as viruses. I'm confident on that now. I've looked into the research. There's really no proof that there ever was a virus. You know,
Yeah.
there's disease, there's sickness. Yeah, we're having a dis-ease. Our body isn't well. Our body's a healing machine, and when it has toxins and poisons in it, it tries to push them out. And that's a lot of times what we're experiencing. It's stuff coming through your liver, it's jamming liver, and then you're getting things through your skin, and it's expressing out of your body these toxins that have been put in. So a lot of it's about what we don't do. So for the last part of the discussion, we got, I'd say another 10 minutes or here, or a little more if we want. I'd like to talk about self-discipline, and then how we share this information with other people, and how we go forward with the one great work. Anybody got something you want to jump in on self-discipline?
Well, I actually do things a little differently than most people would think whenever they hear the word self-discipline. Last year, there was a part of me that died, and that part of me was the part that tends to try hard to do things that maybe I shouldn't even be doing at all. And I might be getting ideas historically. This was actually installed in me at a young age, because you have parents and teachers and society at large all telling you that you must do your life according to their prescription, and inevitably that's going to end up with you one day getting a preferably high paying job. But first you got to go to college, and then you've got to get straight A's at school for 25 years straight. And what comes along with that is a fear-based, like, false discipline that a lot of people have, where they're feeling a lot of external pressure to do and accomplish certain things. And they feel like, on a soul level, this fear, if they don't accomplish all of these hoops that they have to jump through and prizes they have to earn and stuff, that either they're going to die, or they're just not going to have enough money, or they're not going to attract the right mate, things like that. And what it tends to create in people is a false form of discipline, where they're actually burning out spiritually, emotionally, mentally. They're trying to keep pace with an unnatural pace that is set by other people in reality. And they don't even understand really why they want these things that bad. And for that reason, they're not really naturally able to keep up that pace. And eventually they get left behind, and they might have, like, either a midlife crisis or some horrible depression that lingers with them over the years, and like an unexplainable sadness and maybe even lack of motivation that can eventually come when you're doing too much of something that you really don't want to do. So what I've done in the last year is basically that the whatever remained of that energy in me completely died out. And now I can only do things that I feel like doing, that I want to do, and that are easy, at least subjectively, to me. So lately, I've been running a lot, getting a lot of sun, doing my microgreens, doing my garden, doing the great work, video editing, and just different things that I genuinely like doing, and that my
And your
soul.
music too, right, Nathan?
Music, a lot of music. Yeah, I've got a lot I need to upload and stuff, but whenever I feel like sitting down and uploading, I'm going to do that, and it'll be fine, and it's not going to drag me down in any way. So that's an entirely different form of what can be considered discipline, because basically what I'm doing now is I'm programming my subconscious by thinking on certain goals and outcomes, and even more general like life values like happiness, ease, prosperity, freedom, love, truth, abundance. Those are very vague things that can direct your life in a vague but also specific direction. And then you don't really have to worry so much on the details. So when you effectively program your subconscious actually becomes what can be considered an autopilot that will give your body the right amount of energy to do what it is you need to do. And these things will happen automatically where you're not even really thinking about it anymore or even noticing that you're doing it. So when I'm out running, and I carry weights now when I run, I gradually stepped it up to about 8-pound weights that I'm carrying. But my mind might be completely in a different zone. Like I might be just daydreaming, thinking about, whatever comes to mind, or I might be more present. But the point is that you can get into a state where all of your actions are actually on some kind of spiritual autopilot that is basically you don't even feel like you're trying anymore, and you're not even giving it much attention. You'll just notice your body automatically go and be doing things, and you might be so unpresent in certain moments that you're not even sure what it's doing, but your body wanted to go out of the house into the car for some reason. I'm like, well, I guess we're going somewhere important then. And then, you'll start driving. And this is an elaborate example. That exact example didn't exactly happen, but a bunch of things similar to that have been happening to me where I don't even know exactly what I'm doing. And I just notice that I'm doing something, and then I can become more present. I'm like, well, what am I actually doing right now? And then some voice will come to my head that is like some kind of program I set in the past with my subconscious that then says, oh, hey, we're about to go get food. You're hungry, right? And I'm like, yeah, I am hungry. So where are we going? And they're like, well, I don't know exactly where we're going, but I can energetically feel my consciousness going to the right place. It might be Mama Jean's in this area, or it might be, some salad bar somewhere or something. So it's a state, it's a reality that's possible. And it took me a lot of shadow work and spiritual progress over a long period of time to get into this state where I have, full alignment of thought, emotion, and action. And I even have an autopilot that takes care of things without me having to even expend much effort or do much monitoring of it, So it's a great place to be. And I just want to provide that as like an example, and also make someone else aware of what can be the reality for some people. And it might not even be right for everyone to be that way, but lately it's been working for me. So,
Wow.
Yeah, that's the intuition. The power of the intuition is, I think it was talked about in one of Mark's slides where he talks about intelligence, right? And you have on the one side of the word intelligence is you have the intel, and what that tells me is that's like the left brain kind of thinking, where we calculate and we do numbers and we think, well, it would be best if I do this according to what the book I read, and according to informational kind of grammar type thinking, right? And then we have our right side brain, which is the more creative. It's like, I feel like I need something, and that's kind of like, how does your body communicate with you, right? When it needs something, it gets a thirst or a hunger. It's not
Yeah.
like a really specific feeling always. Sometimes it's just like, I feel like I want something, something juicy, something. Oh, a grape. Here's a grape. That's what I want. Yes, I eat it. And if my body's like, yeah, that's what I wanted. So intuition's very real. Sometimes you get a feeling something doesn't feel right in this room right now. I don't think I want to be here. And then you leave and you find out later something terrible happened. So that is
That's
getting to
so
that
true.
balance. And when you're on that higher vibrational level and you've taken care of your physical form, you're able to tap into synchronicities and use your intuition and let it actually guide you. Go ahead, Rick.
I was just thinking, like, it's so true what you're saying, because I think when you're doing the work and you're on the right path, like I like the way you called it woo woo, because that's what people kind of look at it as. But now I'm noticing that I'm starting to meet people or come across information as I need it. If I'm explaining that right, it's kind of really it's a really neat thing. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just I find myself now really if I'm connecting with people now that are more like in line with what I need and I'm thinking about. So it's kind of like the universe is bringing them forward to me. It's and or the information that I'm looking for, it kind of shows up. It's really neat how it's happening. I hope you guys know what I mean. It's kind of hard to
I
explain,
know
but
exactly what you mean. In fact, I've been pointing back to Mark's presentation for Funnel,
right.
where he had this graph and it showed, I think it was a color purple, and it was right at the level, and he called it courage. And when you
Yep.
reach the level of courage, it opens up the whole field of the higher dimensions and the higher vibrations. And when you put forward courage, for me, it happened when I started putting out my podcast and Evil,
Right.
and I started challenging what I knew was wrong instead of holding it inside and having arguments with my family and friends about it, and they didn't want to listen to. Instead, I was like freely giving out information and sharing my philosophy. And all of a sudden, I met Will Keller, John
Right.
Rowland, Leslie Powers, Crypt Rick, Nathan Crabtree, all the people on the One Great Work Network. And I wound up, I didn't have the money, but I paid to go to Mark Passio's class, How to Become the True Media. I just put it on a credit card. I was like, I'm going. I don't care. This is where I need to be. And inside of there, I met all these people, and now I'm part of that network. And every day of my life, I have things that I'm part of and that I'm doing that make that sustain me and make me feel good
Hmm.
because I'm on a purpose. And when you're on a purpose and a path, and Nathan kind of mentioned this too, when you have this focus, all the bullshit kind of falls away.
It
You
does.
don't, it just doesn't bother you. It's like you're moving like an arrow, and think about an arrow flying through the air. What would it take to stop an arrow flying through the air? You know, it's not going to turn around and go back to the bow.
No.
you know, it's
Yep.
moving. The only thing that's going to stop it is when it reaches its destination.
Yep. And
You know,
what's
and,
really
and when
too
you
cool
are that
too.
arrow,
Sorry.
nothing's
Yeah.
going to stop you.
And what's really cool, Chris, is I've been talking, I've told you about how I want to kind of get am more involved in my community and kind of do like a meeting. I'd love to do. I'm trying to set it up, and I've almost got it set up where once a month, a community of us, like-minded people, kind of meet and get together in person. And so, since I've been really thinking about that over the last few months, it's starting to come together. I've been meeting people in my neighborhood, and it's just weird how I'm just running into them. I don't, like I said, I don't know how to explain it. You did a great job, and so did Mark in his presentation. But it's really true that now that I'm trying to form this community, I'm starting to run into people that want to be part of it. It's really cool. And this is people like right around me that I've never really talked to or anything, but it just kind of seems like it's falling into place. That's the best way I can put it. And I've got actual people now that want to do this meeting once a month, and we're going to meet at a restaurant once a month or coffee shop or something, and we're just going to start discussing what we're discussing, topics like we do on our shows. And it's really cool how that just kind of came together. It's really hard to explain.
That's fabulous, Rick, and it is. It's bravery and courage that get you there, and wisdom is action.
Yep.
And action is not always on the physical realm, like we've talked about a little bit. Nathan brought up, and you confirmed, Rick, that when we think positive intentions, and our mind is on a path, that also opens the door. So sometimes just encouraging ourselves and continuing to give ourselves either saying a mantra, has
Hmm.
helped people I know. But we've covered so much in this episode. I can't wait to share it. This is fantastic.
Great
But we're
stuff.
at an
Yeah.
hour, and I think for me, that's kind of like my attention span for something like this. And I hope that, realistically, I don't want people to spend all day watching shows either. I want them to get the gist of what we're saying and then go out there and do it. Turn the damn thing off, get out there and go run with your shirt off like Nathan,
Yep.
and do some research on different herbs. Shilajit is another thing to look into. Um, there's a lot of good herbs out there, and then we have to consider that we're all being poisoned with heavy metals. So we all need heavy metal detox. I recommend cilantro. There's zeolite. There's a lot of things out there to help you detox. And most of all, everybody is chronically dehydrated, so you want to be drinking pure water. And I don't recommend alkaline water. You want to be drinking good source water, primary water if possible, spring water. And 8 ounces every half hour will get you back to where you want to be, according to Kaufman's recommendations, which I've been following, and it really helps you feel good, to be drinking good water and then getting good exercise, get yourself grounded and all such. So any closing thoughts, guys?
Yeah, one last thing. You mentioned water. One thing I've been doing in the last couple months that's really revolutionized my energy levels and my hydration levels. If you add lime juice or lemon juice or some other fruit juice, but I like to just stick with limes to your water, it hydrates you a lot better than just regular water. And you'll notice this if you exercise a lot, your water will go a lot longer, and it'll take you a lot longer to dehydrate. So try that out. Sometimes I'll go through 10 or 15 limes a day, just adding it to water. And the other thing I would say is, on the other side of this positivity, negativity coin, if you have never really done your inner shadow work and you've never examined maybe your subconscious attitudes, the way you feel, if you've never given it much attention, similar to how I have an autopilot that's taking my life in a good direction because that's where I'm going, you might have an autopilot, being the subconscious, that is not taking you in the ideal direction. And your subconscious might be influenced by other people in reality, like the dark occult or the TV or your teachers or even scientists who are telling you certain things are impossible. You really got to examine where you want and what you prefer in life so you can work overtime to transmute that lead into gold. And that's the purpose of the inner great work, is to just get yourself going in the right direction. So
Wonderful words.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah, and it's kind of funny, Nathan, because I'm doing a water cleanse too, and you use lime, I'm using lemon. So Patricia's got me using lemon and cayenne pepper and maple syrup. It's really good,
And
actually.
I think that might have something to do with the fact that we don't want our water to be too alkaline. Things that
Yeah,
are
and
alkaline are things like battery acid. I
right,
mean,
right.
we don't want our stomach is acidic. We don't want to upset that balance too much. And
Yeah,
there's a weird thing that's been going along about drinking real alkaline water, and I don't think it's, personally, from my research, I don't think it's a good idea from what I've heard, and that
right.
might be helping. Adding the acid, the lemon or the
Oh,
lime
it's definitely
might be. I'm
detox.
not sure. I'm not the
Yeah,
scientist,
like
but
we're
that's kind
using
of
it
what my
as
brain's saying.
yeah, we're using it kind of like a detox. I'm doing like a water fast, and the stuff coming out of my pores it's crazy. Like it's really like I over the years I've had so many medications run through my body over the years. I can imagine that it's going to probably take a lot of detoxing to get all of this out of my system, but it definitely, doing the lemon and the cayenne pepper and the maple syrup and drinking tons of that in every day is making a huge difference in cleaning myself, like getting myself cleaned out. I think it's going to take a lot of work. So
I think that's a good point too. I want to say before we close up is that what Nathan and Rick and I are saying. This is our own personal experience and our own personal research and thoughts on these ideas. None of us are doctors. None of us claim to be experts in the medical field. You do your own research.
I'm actually a doctor.
Well,
I
mean,
have a
not
I have
from
a
the way
PhD.
people think about it.
I'm not a medical doctor, but I do have a PhD. So
Really?
yeah, I do.
Fantastic. I did not know that.
near did
Thanks,
I.
Nathan. But I mean, we're not practitioners, like healing practitioners
Right.
necessarily. Maybe Nathan is more than, I don't see myself as that. There's someone
Well,
that I don't
I'm
want someone to
certified.
do exactly what I'm saying and then say, "Oh, Chris told me that I shouldn't drink this type of water," and now
Exactly.
do
I'm a
your own
certified
research is all
medicine
I'm
person
saying.
too. So
Yeah.
not to
So
toot my own horn or anything, but I am certified through a Native American church to do medicine work. So
right on. Yeah.
yeah.
And another
Yeah.
good
So
point,
I
Chris,
mean, I
too,
think
is
it's great
that
advice. I'm not
right,
saying it's not. I'm just saying be careful and do your own research
right.
and don't
And
just
not
take
everything
our
will
word
work
for
for
it.
everybody. Like
Yeah.
like certain things that have worked for people I know didn't work for me. It didn't. So I mean, you got to find your own thing that'll work for you. It's not a one thing fix all kind of thing. It's kind of, you got to do like Chris said, do your
Test it out a
research,
little. Try
test
a
it
little
out a
bit at
little.
something,
Yep. Yep.
see what happens before you take a bunch of something,
Yeah, because I know people like CBD changed my life, but I have people in my life that tried CBD and it didn't do anything, or it actually made them more sick. So, that's why I'm saying, like
The number one thing that healed me, I think, personally was learning to breathe more, and I've been starting to
That's
share.
yes.
If anybody follows me on Facebook, I'm going to try to get on Instagram more. I'm trying to share some of my workout routine and some of my breathing. I learned from Wim Hof, the Wim Hof method, and I've been using that consistently for years now, and that has made incredible difference in my life. Just conscious breathing will change your life.
That's
But
crazy.
you
You
can
just
go to the
brought this
next
up.
level
It's
with Wim
crazy
Hof
that you
breathing.
just brought that up, Chris, because I have a neighbor that's been talking to me about my breathing for a couple weeks now. He lives around the corner from me, and he's really big into the breathing that you're just talking about.
He
And
has
so
an
he's been
app.
teaching me. He's been
It's
teaching
called the
me.
Wim Hof method.
Yes.
And if you download that app, he guides you through it very carefully.
It's
And
weird how you just brought that up, though.
he it says in there, don't ever do it while you're driving, don't ever do it in your swimming pool. But I've done both, and I'm still alive. Don't do those things.
Yeah.
But breathing and using the Wim Hof method will change your life. I can almost guarantee it if you take it seriously.
Yeah, it's really crazy how that I've been learning about this breathing, and you just brought it up. Another synchronistic thing, I guess.
Synchronicity, there it goes.
Yep.
That's the universe giving you a little hint, a little
Yep.
nudge.
And he's been driving me crazy for weeks about this, like teaching me and getting me to do it, and it's really made a big difference. So great advice.
All right, guys. We should close this one up, and I'd like to have you both back more.
Cool.
Anytime. You guys are wonderful guests on the End Evil podcast, and I appreciate your wisdom and your thoughts and the time you shared today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
You
thanks
guys
a
want
lot,
to plug your
Chris.
website one more time?
You can find me Linktree. That's linktr.ee/Crystal Spider. But I'm mainly on BitChute as Crystal Spider, and I've got a YouTube channel for my guitar content, Crystal Spider's Healing Guitar Magic.
Awesome.
Very cool. And you want me to just let people know, Chris?
Yeah, Rick.
Okay.
I've been thinking.
Yeah, I've
that
been thinking.
link you said, it says I've been thinking /about. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be. That's what they gave me. So I mean, I hopefully, but yeah, you can find
But
me
if
on
you go
YouTube.
on YouTube and you type in
Crypt Ricks, I've been
you'll-
thinking,
yeah.
you'll find me. Yep. And then you can find me at Revolution Radio. That's freedomslips.com. And I'm on twice a week, as I said, Saturday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Monday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find all the schedules at Revolution Radio. And I'm also, all of my work is on Anchor FM. So if you just go to Anchor FM, you will find, just type in Crypt Ricks, I've been thinking, and you'll find all my work there too that I've been doing, and a little bit on Rumble, and I'm starting to put stuff on Odyssey, so I'm starting to branch out some more.
Good for you. Good for you, brother. Excellent. And I'm so glad to see you out back and alive and putting out your wonderful stuff. Nathan, thanks for coming today. And thanks for
having me.
battling through your rough last year and showing us it can be done. And all those people out there that are struggling know it's possible. If you can do it, they can do it.
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, have me on anytime. I don't have a job or anything, so I literally just do whatever I want at all times. So
Lucky. All right, guys. I'm going to cut it off. We'll see you next time. Much appreciated. Evil's the destruction of freedom, folks. Let's get out there and do the right thing. Hello, this is Chris Jansen. Welcome to the End Evil podcast.
It was a crazy year, 2020. I think everybody kind of was losing their mind one way or another. But if you're listening to this, you made it through.
And they are making mistakes, and people are starting to awake.
There is a science of human freedom.
It's also a spiritual journey.
A person under hypnosis will start to see that there's something wrong. something is wrong.
It's great that you know what you've come to know, but until there's an outlet for that information and you start creating and putting your creations out into the world to teach other people so that they can become as knowledgeable as you.
Life. What is encouraging life is good. That which takes away from life and growth and creativity is not good.